The 2025 high school recruiting class for Indiana basketball has a chance to be historic.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. Hope you had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. We are back. This is your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Well, again, thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day, and lots to get to today. The 2025 high school recruiting class could be a huge opportunity. Well, it is a huge opportunity for Woodson and Indiana basketball. I'm going to tell you about some names that you need to know in that class. A couple that we've talked about already, some new names that maybe you haven't heard of quite yet. We'll get to those as we go through the show today. Plus, Indiana football sees some of those upgrades start to happen around the facilities with new turf inside the practice field. And Indiana baseball, they're still dancing. They make it into a regional. There is a little drawback, but hey, they're playing postseason baseball. That's all that we can ask for. That's what's coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, there's no secret that in 2025, this upcoming high school basketball recruiting class, it's got some of the most talent that we have seen in a long, long time. And most of them, a lot of them were just on display and have been on display over the past couple of weeks and all these different circuits and all these different events, right? Whether it be Nike or Adidas or Under Armour or whatever, right? There's all these different events going on across the country that are hosting and displaying the best high school teams and high school players in the country. And Indiana has been all over the place looking at these guys and watching them play and really making their list of, okay, who do we truly want to be an Indiana Hoosier? And there's tons of different guys that you could go after, but the ones that I think you need to know, all right, the names that I think are really, really important here are some of the guys that we've talked about already. Jalen Haralson, Braylon Mullins. Those are two guys that I think are just key to your recruiting class. And the good news is something that we've talked about here, Indiana's been on them. They've been on them often, and they've been on them early. And both of those guys, I think, are very interested in what Indiana has to offer because of the excitement of what Indiana can become again, right? The fact that they can get here and come here and really make this their program. These guys have talked about that. They've talked about having the opportunity to come to Bloomington and make it a winning program again. And I think they absolutely can do that. I hope that this is already on the trend of a winning program after this year, but you get what they're saying, where they can show up here and really take Indiana to that next level. So I think they're excited about that, about what Indiana brings them. I think they understand what Indiana is as a basketball brand, but I'm excited about those two guys in particular, Haralson and Braylon Mullins, because of how they fit the system, how they are going to fit with Mike Woodson and what Indiana's wanting to do. Guys that have size, guys that can play individual basketball, they can go and get a bucket, and you can just rely on them each and every night, whether you're at home, on the road, neutral site, doesn't matter. Those are the guys that you can rely on and are program changers. Those are guys that are highlighted months in advance before the season even starts, and they're on the watch list for all Big Ten and all American and all those sorts of things, right? They've been studs in high school, but these guys are going to be studs in college as well. So those are the two that continue to come back up that I continue to keep my eye on, and you should as well. Okay, Braylon Mullins and Jalen Haralson. Couple of other guys that we've mentioned, Trent Sisley, Bryson Tiller, those guys as well, Malachi Marino. All these guys, I think, are in a big, big loop. And I think you could put Nate Ament in there too. I really think you can loop him into that, where Indiana's there. The Hoosiers are all in on these guys. And I think they would take any combination of them, right? I mean, of course, you would take any of these guys. You're not going to turn them down. You're not going to say, well, actually, yeah, we changed our mind. I don't think so. I think these are at the top of the list. If you were able to walk into the office of Mike Woodson and all of his assistant coaches and see the whiteboard on the wall that says 2025 recruits, 2025 prospects, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these guys would be at the top of that list. So then you have to start asking yourself the question, okay, are you going to get all of them? No, you're not. How many of them are you going to get? I don't know. But it's no secret that we have to get better in the recruiting cycle. You have to get more than one. Yes, you've gotten a really good player, Bryson Tiller, coming in this season. But one year after year after year is not going to get it done. You've brought in high-level ones, but you've got to do it numerous times, multiple times. I've told you what I think about high school recruiting versus the transfer portal. You cannot live in the portal and be a successful program long-term. I just don't believe you can do it. I still think that high school recruiting has to be your breeding ground. That has to be where you live if you want to bring in legitimate talent, long-term talent to your program. And I think that's what Indiana is going to do. So keep your eye on guys like Braylon Mullins, Jalen Haralson. You know those names, Bryson Tiller, right? You are familiar with those names, and we'll update you as we go. And as this process continues, we are going to be getting into the months. A lot of these guys want to have this settled and decided before their season starts. And high school basketball is not that far away, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking late fall, getting into October, November, like that December. That's when high school basketball will get cranked up for all these guys. And not all of them, but numerous of them have said, yeah, I want to have it done and decided. And that's becoming a more popular trend where then they can just go through the season and not have to worry about it. So we're a couple of months away from guys committing here, hopefully here to Indiana, but just committing everywhere else. A couple of other guys to keep your eye on: Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas. I think those are names you need to know as well. And then a guy we talked about late last week, I believe, Chris Senack, a guy that Indiana offered moving forward in that class as well. And dude, there are so many names here, so many big names. I'm trying to think of what year that I could compare the 2025 class to, because there's just so many big, good names and so much talent that's going to spread out across the country. And I think it's going to go down as one of the best ever. I really do. I think it's that high level and it's that deep. That's the thing that I continue to see. It's like I continue reading names and seeing highlights. It's like, man, that guy can play. Oh, well, that guy can play. Man, he's really good too. Like, that's going to be the good thing. If Indiana, for whatever reason, if we can't get our big A-list go-to guys, I think as long as we pull in 4 or 5 big name recruits, we're going to be happy with whoever we get, because there are so many good, talented players. But those guys I started with, those are at the top of the list. Do not be fooled. And I think Indiana's in the mix with a lot of them. And I think you can see Indiana land those guys when their time comes on commitment day for them to become Indiana Hoosiers, because the 2025 class, again, has a chance to be historical for the Indiana basketball program. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll flip over to football a little bit, as we've talked about the facilities upgrades and how the university has invested millions of dollars into Indiana football. A new step has been taken towards that. We'll talk about that coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Well, I don't know about you, but I did not have the Pacers getting swept in the first round. I don't think I had them winning, or not the first round, in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think I had them getting swept. I didn't have them winning, but I had them getting a game or two against the Celtics. And look, when you turn the ball over and you blow it each and every game, well, that's what's going to happen when you play a really good team like Boston. But hey, if you had the Celtics winning, then congratulations. You probably won yourself some money on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Again, appreciate you making this part of your rotation, your true first listen each and every day. If you have not already on YouTube, be sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel. We're past 2,500, on our way to 26, which means we're on our way to 3,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for doing that. Be sure you comment down below on anything that we're talking about on the show today. To all my audio listeners as well, thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day. Be sure you follow us on there, turn on notifications, do whatever you got to do so you don't miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, the Indiana football program is turning in the right direction, and you can thank Curt Cignetti for that, the new head coach who has come in and really generated a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement around the fan base, around the players, around the program, but most importantly, around the decision makers when it comes to Indiana football, those at the university and inside the athletics department. They have decided that they're going to invest some more money in Indiana football, which is necessary. It's been necessary. It's just not something that they have fully done. And I think Curt Cignetti, when he took the job, and probably before he took the job, he said, look, I'm excited to come here and I will take this job, but you've got to help me out. You've got to give me the resources and the ability to be successful here because, man, you can make the argument that coaches here previously in Bloomington didn't have everything they needed to be successful. Look at the other schools around the country. Shoot, just look at the other programs around the Big Ten. Indiana's near the bottom in terms of investment and money in buy-in to the football program compared to all the other schools around this conference. And that just got worse with the 4 new additions, right? So I think Curt Cignetti understood, hey, I need X, Y, and Z for me to be successful. And Indiana gave in a good way, but they finally decided, yeah, this is important to us. If we want this to work, we've got to get him what he needs. And so they've begun to really put some money into this thing, and they told us they were going to, and that has been happening, and it's taking place as we speak. A few days ago, it became official that the new turf field was put inside of the practice facility at John Mellencamp Pavilion. There are brand new turf field inside there. So basically, they took all the old stuff up and cleaned it out and gutted it and put new stuff down. And it looks really, really sharp. Go find some pictures of it. It looks really good inside of John Mellencamp Pavilion. And I'm looking at a picture of it right now. It looks legit. It looks real. It looks like a top program in college football in the practice facility. There's some word that they're going to be doing this on the outside field as well. Of course, they're just right there connected. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what you have to be doing if you're Indiana. And some people would say, why does it matter? It's just a practice field. Why does it have to be nice? Why does it have to be that fancy turf that cost $1 million? That apparently is what this was. And why do you have to invest in that? Aren't there other ways to spend the money? Yes, but these are the things that matter. Players care about this. They care about what they play on and what they practice on and what it looks like and how it feels and how they could perform on it. Like, these are the things you have to do on top of what they've been talking about with the football-only facility of the weight room and the locker rooms and the team rooms and those types of things that Indiana is investing in. Those things matter to 18, 19, 20-year-olds because that's what they go to do. Yes, they're there to play football, but they're there to have top-notch facilities. You're a Power 4 program now. You have to be a Power 4 program. You have to act like it, is what I'm saying. You've got to act like it. And I think Indiana's doing that. They've invested and they've continued to do that. And so this looks really, really good. You've got Indiana in both end zones. You've got the state of Indiana with the logo there on the practice field. Looks really, really good. And again, they're continuing to invest into the football program with all of those football-only things. And I know that seems a little odd to some if you're not kind of familiar with what that means and why they do that. But, man, there's so many kids that play football. I mean, you can have over 100 kids on the team, but with scholarships and walk-ons, plus all the coaches and everything else, like, and the trainers. I mean, there are hundreds of people involved in the football program compared to basketball, where there's 25, with everybody, players, coaches, and trainers. I mean, you see what I'm saying here? Whereas football needs their own thing. They've got to have their own space to do their thing because they are so big and there's so many players doing so many different things. Yeah, some of those smaller sports, you can combine them a little bit, basketball and volleyball and things like that. You can put those, and I'm talking not just at Indiana, I'm talking everywhere. I'm talking at any school where you can put those other sports together to work out in the same places and practice in the same facilities. But in terms of Indiana football and any big name football program, yeah, you got to have this type of thing. So glad to see that the turf is put down and they're just going to continue to buy in and put more money. And I really do hope that if Curt Cignetti asks for it, that Indiana at least considers it, that they at least take it into consideration and say, okay, we understand, coach, let us sit down and look at this, rather than what I feel like it's been in the past of, no, not right now. No, not going to make that happen. No, don't think so. Keep going, move on. Just go coach, go win games. That's what it has felt like for so long at Indiana. But I think Curt Cignetti has come in and just somehow, I don't know what he said. I don't know how he did it, but he has convinced them that there is an opportunity right now for the Hoosiers to get back in the game with the transfer portal and NIL, which is something he has talked about as well, right? He had those comments about how NIL was more than he was promised, which is a good thing to have. That's a good problem to come across, right? They have more funds than they thought they were going to have with those two things, and who knows how that's going to change with the new legislation that went in late last week. You have a chance to get back. You have a chance to catch up, because you're so far behind, but this program has a chance to get back into it in the Big Ten and around college football with the portal and with NIL. And it seems like now we're going to player contracts, and the school's going to have a certain amount of money from their profit to pay players. I mean, it's going to be insane. There's no telling what this is going to do. But I feel that Indiana has understood and realized, hey, we have a chance. We have a chance to do something here and make up for lost time and be a competitive football program again. And just look at what's happening with the buzz around the transfer portal players and the recruits that you're getting and the guys that are taking visits and all of those things. Like, people are invested. And most importantly, the athletics department is, the decision makers, the people with all the money. They are the ones that are buying in and truly believing in Curt Cignetti and Indiana football. I do. I think it's exciting. I think he's going to at least make some changes and at least start winning some games. Is he going to win a playoff? No, not right now, but he's at least trying and believes that it can happen here. And I think that's the first step. And I believe that's something we've been missing here in Bloomington for a really long time. Coming up on our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, Indiana baseball still alive. They are playing in the regional, but they got the hardest one out there. We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, I appreciate you being here, making this part of your daily rotation, whether you listen and watch us on the way to work, in the shower, in the kitchen. I don't care. As long as you're watching, that's what matters. And thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day. Well, we're going to hit the trifecta today. We're going to hit all three sports here on Locked On Hoosiers. As Indiana baseball, they were sweating. There's no doubt about it. They were stressed. They were worried. They were nervous on Monday afternoon, but they heard what they wanted to hear. They are in the NCAA Tournament. Indiana baseball is in postseason play. They are now going to be taking the trip down to Knoxville, Tennessee, to take on three other teams in the Knoxville regional of the NCAA Tournament. For a team that finished 32-24-1 overall this season with a 15-9 record in Big Ten play. They made it all the way to the semifinals and were knocked out by Nebraska, who went on to win the Big Ten tournament. I think that was enough. And we talked about this last Friday when they had made it and secured that spot in the semifinals. I told you I thought it was enough, but why leave it there and try to go get some more and try to even get the automatic bid if you were to win the Big Ten tournament? Wasn't able to do that, but I still think the Hoosiers had done enough to get there, even if their wins before that in the tournament were not the most impressive in terms of who the opponent was. The scores were good, but the opponents were kind of eh. And so with all the rankings and all the numbers and everywhere you wanted to look, the Hoosiers it's just plain and simple. We were on the bubble. Some had us in, some had us out. Some numbers said we should have been in, some numbers said we should have been out. And so going into the selection show, we had no idea. And that's a scary spot to be, man. That's a scary spot to be in terms of who makes the NCAA tournament. But a 32-win team who made it to the semifinals of a Power 4 conference, Power 5 still, with the Pac-12 now being done, which that was a sad scene, wasn't it? I believe that was good enough. And they believed it too. And they put Indiana as the 3 seed in the Knoxville regional, where they will be joined with the number 1 overall seed in Tennessee. We'll get to that in just a second. Number 2 seed Southern Miss, and number 4 Northern Kentucky. So, yeah, Indiana's in. We're playing postseason baseball. That's fantastic. Here's your reward. You get to play the hardest team and the best team in the country. Now, I will say that Tennessee team played pretty well in the SEC tournament, and they've been a sleeper team down there in the Southeastern Conference. Not a team that many people are talking about, which is insane to say about the number 1 overall seed. They're really good. I don't have to tell you that. So the Hoosiers get in, but you got the hardest path to try to make a run in this thing. Good news is, as the 3 seed, the Hoosiers are going to open up with Southern Miss on Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern time down there in Knoxville. So you don't have to start out with that number 1 Tennessee team. Try to get that first win, get it under your belt, get down there, practice, get in their stadium, right? Kind of get familiar with everything. And look, you're playing with house money now. If you're Indiana, you got nothing to lose. Some people said you weren't supposed to be here, and here you are. Now you're in postseason play. Just go and have fun. Go and try to be a home wrecker. Be that dark horse in the Cinderella story, if you will, as a 3 seed in the number 1 seed's house. You have a chance to do that. You have a chance to go in and have a lot of fun. This will run from this Friday on May 31st until next Monday on June 3rd. And this is a good piece, too, that you need to know. If the Hoosiers are able to get out of this Knoxville regional, and shock the world, the Hoosiers would play either East Carolina, who's the 1 seed on that side, 2 seed Wake Forest, 3 seed VCU, and 4 seed Evansville. So keep that in mind as well. And I'm going to pull up the full bracket and kind of run through some of these for you. Illinois made it from the Big Ten. You have some pretty decent teams in here overall. I mean, of course, a ton of SEC teams in there. Nebraska is a 2 seed. They're down there in the UC Santa Barbara bracket, which that's always interesting to me when those types of teams are hosting. But hey, they do a really good job. So shout out to them. Oregon, who is a future Big Ten team. They're still Pac-12. They're still going to be wearing the Pac-12 patch, but they will be, of course, in the Big Ten next season. And how about a walk-off to end the final Pac-12 baseball tournament game in the history of its existence? Like, the final game was in a walk-off fashion. That was pretty cool to see that as well. You have teams in here that, again, it's just kind of stunning to see what the SEC can do. And then you have Indiana up there as a 3 seed. And look, is it going to be difficult for the Hoosiers? Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I mean, nobody's going to pick anybody but Tennessee to come out of that regional, but that's why I told you, you're playing with house money. What you did your job, you got there, okay? You were sweating on selection day. You got in late, but you got in, and they gave you the hardest path. That's fine. Go in and have a little bit of fun. And I'm hoping that a lot of you Hoosiers fans get to make the trip down to Knoxville. I've never been to the baseball stadium there, but I've heard it's extremely nice. I mean, they're one of the top programs in all of college baseball is Tennessee. Their facilities are legit. If you have a chance, go check it out. Be a part of the fun down there. Spend a weekend in Knoxville and, travel south for a little bit and go support this team if you have the chance to do it. I can't. I wish I could. But if you do it. It would be a lot of fun, and the boys would appreciate it. There's no doubt about it. And hey, you just never know. right? You never know if this team could just get hot, a team could shut somebody down, and you just never know what's going to happen. But I'm excited for this program, man. They deserved it. They won enough games. They did their job. They got hot down the stretch, and they were able to do what they had to do to get into the postseason. Indiana baseball playing in the NCAA tournament. They are in the number 1 overall seeds bracket in Knoxville, taking on the Volunteers. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you're on the video version, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on the channel icon, hit subscribe, takes one tap of your thumb, and you'll never miss a new episode of the show. My audio listeners, same thing to you. Follow, subscribe, turn on notifications, however you got to do it. That way, nobody misses a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We'll be back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. Until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.